"Are you seriously trying to open my truck door with that thing?" That's what I said deadpan as this woman, wearing a power blazer and a necklace that looked like it came from a Renaissance fair, stood outside my moving truck, gripping some oversized key like she was about to knight me or arrest me. Her name? Vivian Blackstone. President of the Maple Grove Estates HOA, self-appointed, from what I'd later find out, and in that moment, self-declared queen of suburban law and order. She had parked her little white golf cart sideways, blocking the street like she was making a traffic stop, and when I didn't immediately comply with her so-called mandatory HOA vehicle inspection, she actually tried to unlock my truck. With a key that didn't even fit. When it didn't work, shocker, she got flustered, stepped back like I'd just insulted the Pope, and called the cops. I should have known that was the moment everything was going to spiral. Let me back up a sec. I'm Marcus Wellington. 3 months ago, I was just a guy trying to start over after a divorce. My daughter Zoe, she's 8, and I had finally found a new place, Maple Grove Estates, all cute front lawns and peaceful vibes. Looked like the perfect spot to hit reset. Boy, was I wrong. That neighborhood wasn't peaceful, it was controlled. And Vivian Blackstone was the puppeteer behind every trimmed hedge and trash can policy. Now, I've spent over a decade as an aerospace engineer at NASA. My whole life's been about systems, procedures, logic. I've briefed senators, audited launch protocols, managed $80 million projects. But none of that prepared me for HOA madness. The first time I saw Vivian, I actually thought she worked for the city or something. She rolled up wearing this crisp white blazer, had her blonde hair in that not a strand out of place style that says, "My dog has a therapist," and the key man, that key, she wore it like it was Excalibur. Silver, ornate, clearly not functional, but she believed in it like it could part the Red Sea. "Excuse me, sir," she said, in a tone that made my skin crawl. "You can't enter the community until your belongings have been cleared. Per regulation." She pointed at my moving truck like it was full of smuggled uranium, and my daughter's stuffed animals were a national security threat. I stayed calm, like I always do. "Mom," I said, "I've got all the paperwork. The sale's closed, titles transferred, and nowhere in the bylaws does it say you can search my vehicle." That's when she got real quiet, the scary kind of quiet. Then she held up her ridiculous key and said, "This opens every door in Maple Grove. I am the law here." You know how you can just tell when someone's not just power tripping, but actually believes they're a dictator? That was her. And in that moment, standing there with my kid watching from the back seat, all I could think was, this is gonna get messy. And it did. Because when the police arrived expecting, I'm sure, to deal with some kind of unhinged new resident, they found me standing calmly by my truck and Vivian pacing like a chihuahua on espresso. But here's the twist, the officer was someone I knew. Carlos Rodriguez. We'd crossed paths on a fraud investigation tied to aerospace tech years ago. Smart guy. Sharp. And when he recognized me, I could see it on his face, he knew something was off. Vivian went full meltdown in front of him. He's defying HOA protocol. He's hostile. His truck is modified to resist oversight. She actually said that. Like I had installed anti-HOA shielding on my U-Haul. Carlos gave me a side glance like, what the hell is happening here, and asked her straight up what law I was supposedly breaking. She waved the key again, that poor, sad key, and said, "This represents my full access. I am the master authority here." But here's the thing. I'd looked through the HOA documents, and that level of authority, it wasn't there. None of it was. No mention of vehicle inspections. No clause granting physical searches. And certainly no provision about an all-powerful master key necklace. Carlos knew it. I could tell. So he politely asked Vivian to hand over her key and any documentation. Her hands were shaking. She didn't want him to touch that key, almost like she knew it couldn't hold up under scrutiny. When he examined it, he just raised an eyebrow and said, "This looks decorative." I couldn't help but smirk. But that's when things took a turn. When Carlos casually asked about how long she'd been president, she proudly said 8 years. Only. The closing document I'd signed mentioned the HOA had a leadership change 7 years ago. A little red flag popped up in my brain. Later that week, I talked to an older neighbor, Mrs. Chun. Lovely woman, retired math teacher, tended the most beautiful roses on the block. She dropped the first bomb. The previous HOA president, Richard Thompson, didn't move away. He just vanished. Vivian said it was a family emergency, Mrs. Chun whispered, but Richard had no family. No boxes, no moving truck. One day he was here. The next, she was in charge. And get this, Mrs. Chun had a letter from Richard. Handwritten, dated 8 years ago. It said he'd found discrepancies in the HOA finances, weird construction invoices, missing money, and that he feared someone was helping cover it up. "If anything happens to me," he wrote, "check the basement under the clubhouse." Yeah. The basement. The one nobody knew existed. Long story short, I found it. Behind a tool shed near the clubhouse, hidden under some floorboards. There was a whole underground office with documents, photos, even a wall-sized map showing multiple HOAs across the state. Different neighborhoods. Different takeovers. It wasn't just about Maple Grove. Vivian and someone else who turned out to be Deputy Chief Harrison, yep, real law enforcement, were running a whole operation. Take over HOAs. Remove leaders. Siphon funds. Rinse and repeat. And at the center of that war, one photo had a red X over it. Richard Thompson. The caption: "Problem solved." I took pictures of everything. Copies, backups, cloud storage, the works. Then I called Carlos. We planned it carefully. At the next HOA meeting packed with residents, I stood up, dead center of the room, and asked, "Can anyone here tell me what really happened to Richard Thompson?" Vivian tried to shut it down. Harrison stood up in the back, hand on his belt, ready to intimidate. But I kept going. I showed the crowd the timeline. The documents. Mrs. Chen stood beside me, holding Richard's letter. And just as things started to boil, the back doors opened. FBI agents walked in. Vivian turned white. Harrison froze. And in front of the whole community, they were arrested. For conspiracy, fraud, and murder. The key she always wore fell to the floor. Hollow. Fake. Just like her authority. We later found out they'd infiltrated at least 12 HOAs, siphoned off hundreds of thousands, and had plans for more. The real kicker. Richard's original brass key, the actual master key, had been hidden away by Mrs. Chun this whole time. Simple, functional, honest. That same key now hangs in the clubhouse, mounted on a plaque that reads, "Real authority serves. It doesn't control." And me. I never wanted to lead anything, but after what happened, the community elected me as the new HOA president. Unanimously. Funny how things come full circle. But here's the thing, I keep wondering, if Vivian hadn't tried to open my truck door with that dumb fake key, would any of this ever have unraveled? Would Richard still be just a name nobody questioned? So let me ask you, what do you think? Was justice served? Or was this just the surface of something deeper, scarier about what happens when small power goes unchecked? Let me know in the comments. I've got a feeling this kind of thing isn't as rare as it should be.